So let's do a triplet. Let's do 6. And you can hear as soon as it gets to the downbeat of the new loop, it starts sending that new clock. Hi, this is Andre. In the previous video, we looked at using a clock divider to take a MIDI master clock signal and tweak it so that downstream devices sync to it in ways that create polyrhythmic effects. There are some hardware devices that actually let you adjust the relationship between the loop length and the outgoing MIDI clock all by themselves so that they effectively have a clock divider built into them. The two hardware loopers I'm aware of that do this are the Echoplex Digital Pro and Looperlative LP1. Now, I definitely do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of the technical specs of all known looping devices, so there are probably other units that have been made which offer this kind of functionality. There may even be ways to get this kind of thing happening with some of the other hardware loopers I currently have access to, and I just need to do more homework. But nothing that I know of lets you get this kind of thing happening as easily and elegantly as the built-in functionality of the EDP and LP1. We're going to take a look at both of them using their rhythmic flexibility to hack polyrhythms out of the Microcosm's micro-looping algorithms. Here's one side note. As we'll see, the LP1 needs to be reset and record a new loop from scratch before any changes to its outgoing MIDI clock will take effect. I was speaking with Bob Amstad, the owner of Looperlative, about this kind of thing, and he mentioned that he could update the LP1 software so that clock changes could be heard immediately without having to erase a current loop and record a new one. I told him not to worry about doing that just on my account, since the clock divider in the Empress Zoya that we looked at in the previous video was working fine for me, and it strikes me as a pretty obscure feature request in general. But Looperlative is open to the possibility. It's also worth noting that Looperlative devices are still under ongoing development, with the most recent software update having happened just within the last week of this video having been made. Now, Joel Gilardini, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a looping musician who's really been spearheading Looperlative development for the last couple of years. He's much more of an expert on their functionality than I am myself, and he has a lot of tutorial videos of his own, so I'll link to his YouTube channel in the description below. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. Alright, here's a loop I made off camera. And on the EDP, the 8th per cycle parameter tells you how many eighth notes, MIDI eighth notes, are going to be transmitted in relation to the overall loop length. So, right now 8th per cycle is set to 8. That means that we're going to get a very straightforward, very steady output to the microcosm. So, very, very straightforward. Now, if we change the 8th per cycle value, let's mute that for a second. If we change the 8th per cycle value to 4, then we should have half as many repetitions. Yep. And we can go to a lot of different values. It initially scrolls through the most common ones, and then it lets you go one at a time. So let's do a triplet. Let's do 6. And you can hear as soon as it gets to the downbeat of the new loop, it starts sending that new clock. Let's speed it up on the microcosm, because we can do that too. Speed it up even more on the microcosm. Let's change that again. 212 should be twice as fast now. Slow it on down. All right, let's get into some stranger polyrhythms. Let's try 5. Speed it up. And let's try 7. Slow it down. Bypass this for a second. Also, here's a technical note for the Microcosm geeks. I'm using the ARP effect, which quantizes to the tempo pulse. So if we unbypass this, that is the tempo pulse. And the ARP effect will lock all of its effects, all of its bursts of sound to that pulse. So it doesn't matter when I play. Every subsequent repetition that's being fired by the ARP algorithm is going to lock to that. So I can play whenever, and all the subsequent notes are going to be perfectly quantized to whatever the incoming subdivision value from the EDP is. So if it sounds like I'm doing an exceptionally good job of playing in time, it's not me. This is how long it's been since I used the EDP. I have to remind myself how to do this stuff. Let's do 9. And let's actually do this. We're going to increase the number of steps in the ARP algorithm so we can get more notes happening. Slow it down. Speed it up. And let's increase the number of steps on the microcosm. And let's go back to something pretty straightforward. Speed it up. There we go. Let's change the let's change it again. How about Let's go back to 5. All right, let's record an initial loop. Close overdub, unbypass microcosm, and play. So 4 beats per loop. You can speed it up on the microcosm to twice the speed. All right, let's bypass the microcosm again. Now, if we go to the All menu, and come up to beats per loop, enter. Right now it's set to 4. You can change that value. Let's set it to 6. Now, the caveat here is that you're not going to hear the difference until you reset the LP1. So if we start playing with the microcosm again, you can see it's still dividing it into 4s and 8s. Now if we erase that loop, bypass microcosm and record from scratch, I'm going to try and record the same basic loop that we had there. So now if we unbypass and start playing, there we go. Let's do hold. Reset. And let's do something a little odder. Be quiet, microcosm. Thank you. All. Beats per loop. Let's do 5. See if I can do the same rhythm again. Now let's see what we've got here. Hold. Yep. There we go. It was still doing 5 before, but it's a little easier to hear it when it's twice as fast like this. Unhold. Unhold. go really slow. Oh, that's right, you can't do that with the ARP algorithm. Unhold. Hold. Unhold. Hold.